Tirdok, Tirmos, Kafir, Vitanin, Ivicha Shafa, Pateos, Gaver, Kiadashmi, Igraini, Venehu, Imo, Anoki, Vita, Fatser, Vachadeu, Orachemi must be a you, Bishuati, Orachemi must be over Bishuati.
Mm-hmm. Just during this time. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we're going to begin the funeral services of Mr. Bertram F. Hamilton. Rabbi Michael Schwab from North Suburban Synagogue Bethel will be officiating. For those of you who are here, please be sure that your cell phones have been turned off. You can gather underneath the canopy if you wish, or not. And we're honored to have representatives from the United States Armed Forces to have the honor guard. We want to thank the representatives from the United States Armed Forces for being here this morning. This time we ask a gentleman from the cemetery to lower his casket as Rabbi Schwab begins the funeral ceremony.
As the casket is lowered, I'll recite from Psalm 121. Shir Lamalot. Esa enai al harim me'ain yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai. Oseh shamayim va'aretz. Hayiten lamot raglecha. Al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan. Shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha. Adonai tzilcha yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka. V'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra. Yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha. Me'ata v'yad olam. A song for ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm and guard your life. God guard your going and your coming, now and forevermore. Al Mekomo Yavo V'Shalom. May Bertram Hamilton go unto God in peace, and let us all say Amen. Bert Hamilton was a man of deep integrity, of true honesty, and I want to begin with Psalm 15 in his memory. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai mi yagor ba'olech, hamishkon bahar kodshecha, holech tamim ufoel tzedek, v'dover emet bilvavo, lo ragal al leshono lo asa l'rei ora, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo, nivzeh beinav nim'as, Bet Yirei Adonai yichabed, Nishba la'arav v'lo yamir, Kaspo lo natan b'neshech, V'shochad al nakilo lakach, Osei lo yimot le'olam. A translation. Do we deserve to enter into God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity. Do what is right. Speak the truth. Have no slander upon your tongue. Do no evil to others. Do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn those contemptible, but honor those who revere God. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates, accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, and you shall stand firm forever. The beautiful legacy of Bert Hamilton will surely stand forever. I'm now going to recite Psalm 23, and afterwards I'll ask if you have the paper that was given to you that we'll recite Psalm 23 together in the English. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binoteh sheyar bitzeni, al me menuchot yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeitz al mavet, lo yirara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha mishan techa hema, yinachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorai, Dishanta v'Hashemen roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai leorech yamim. Please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. There's a great wisdom from the ancient philosopher Ben Sira, who said that when a parent dies, he's not upset because he knows that the next generation, and in this case, the next generation after, will carry on his legacy. And we know that L'Dor Vador, from generation to generation, his legacy will indeed be carried on. Pirkei Avot teaches us, Eza hu mechubad, ha-mechabed et habriot. Ben Zoma said, who is honorable and dignified? The person that honors others. Today we come to celebrate the life of Bertram Hamilton, a man who lived his life with dignity, honoring, loving, and respecting his community, his neighbors, his friends, and always his family. Bert was a class act whose wisdom, intelligence, care, and love will be sorely missed by all who knew him. Therefore, at this time, I want to extend my condolences and those of his synagogue, North Suburban Synagogue Bethel, to his beloved children, to James and Debbie, to William and Debbie, Susan and David, as well as to his adored grandchildren, Ashley, Avital, Scott, Kobe, Jacob, Hannah, and Ava, and to all his loving friends and family. My hope is, and my blessing is, that the words we share today provide all of us, and especially the family, some measure of comfort at a difficult time in their lives. In a few moments, his children and grandchildren will come to honor him and share words about him. So I'm just going to highlight a few things from his wonderful life and add a few personal words of my own. As most of you who are listening know, either on the live stream or here in person, Bert was born in 1923 and he grew up on the north side of Chicago. As the two of us, meaning me and Bert, have discussed, he went to Von Steuben High School, as did my own Bubby, and like her family, he had a summer place in South Haven, Michigan that they enjoyed going to. From an early age, he displayed a love for family and for being active and social, and particularly for playing tennis. He went to college at U of I, and during his time there was drafted into the Army, where he served in the Pacific Theater as a radio operator. We saw the honors that were just given to him before. Apparently there, he was clever enough to find a way to combine serving his country with his love of tennis. When one of the Japanese princes needed a hitting partner, Bert was somehow there to volunteer. You can ask the family about that story, that's all I know. Regardless, we all owe him a debt of gratitude for his service to our country. When he returned, he finished up at U of I, he worked for his dad and another job, and eventually became a vice president of Nicholson, Porter, and List. While his passions may have been tennis, golf, reading history, and being with his family, he was indeed good at his job and became a successful businessman. He met the love of his life, Betty, at age 34. He had been dating fairly often and was set up with her. He asked her to dinner, as the story goes, which she had already eaten, but told him she would accompany him to dinner anyway. He ate, she talked, and the family told me the rest was history. I hope I didn't steal yours. They were married at the Drake in a small wedding, officiated by Ira Eisenstein of Anshe Emet, and one of his last smiles, Bill told me, before he died, was looking at that wedding album. They had a beautiful, loving relationship, each taking care of the other with love and respect. And although trite, perhaps it is of some comfort that they are together again. In a moment, like I said, I'm going to hand it over to his children to talk about him as a father and about the rest of his life. But I just wanted to say a few words from me and from behalf of Bethel. I arrived at Bethel 16 years ago. Although his children told me that his involvement in shul became more pronounced after Betty's accident and Bill's journey to becoming a rabbi, by the time I got there, Bert was a familiar face in our sanctuary. He was very devoted to Jewish life, at the synagogue, through JUF and the BJE. Every time he talked to me, he was so kind, polite, dignified. I am sure that in life at some point he complained, but I can tell you personally, I never heard any. Not once. That's pretty unique in a shul. Bill, right? He was complimentary, always inquired about my welfare and about my family, and he gave me special kudos when my sermon was both well done and concise. I will miss him, and I know that our Bethel community will too. The world is a poor place without Baruch Pinchas ben Ephraim Alevi b'Chana Fruma. Yehi zichro Baruch. May his memory be forever a blessing, and let us all here say, Amen. Jim, if you want to say a few words?
Can you hear me? Oh. Thank you very much for coming. Dad's legacy is right here. He loved my mother, took care of her till her last moments. He loved his brother Herb and helped to take care of him until his last moments as well. He loved his children. He loved the ones his children loved. He loved his grandchildren and the ones that they love as well. He loved his work. He loved his cousins. He loved everyone at work. He loved our Sunday night dinners. He loved our talks. He was a quintessential family man. And he even ate the tuna fish at Bethel's. Yeah, exactly, after services. He always treated everyone with respect and fairness. On occasion, they would not deserve it, and he would let us know. Just ask the maitre d' at Commander's Palace in New Orleans, where he has not returned since. He would always listen. He would always discuss. He would always hear you out. He would point out when you were right, but usually he was right. Dad and I were able to share our mostly hapless sports teams together. He was the first call I made after the Bears won the Super Bowl in 1986. I dragged him out of a movie theater after Illinois fell down by double digits in the 2005 regional final to tell him to watch the end of the game because I had a good feeling about that. And he would always call me every time Vanderbilt would win anything. Luckily, he called more often than that. Television, movies, music can only get you so far. It's important to keep your mind sharp. He read, he did crosswords, he played bridge, poker, gin, rummy, word games, mind games. They all helped keep him mentally sharp way until the end. When he began to decline physically, his mind was still as sharp as ever, as many can attest to. We were able to discuss sports, politics, everything. He remembered almost everything. And he had no trouble expressing his opinion all the way up until the end. A martini is made of either Beefeater or Tanqueray gin, and you should be able to read the newspaper through it. There was always a certain order to everything. Salad came first, then dinner, then dessert. As I said, family meals. We would always take the train home. We'd have our family dinner, ask about our days, appreciate our moments, large or small, watching the news, the 10 o'clock news in bed, falling asleep before the local sports, which was usually a good thing. Clothing from Brooks Brothers never goes out of style. I think I was in my late 20s before I knew he owned a pair of blue jeans. He always dressed above anyone else for any occasion. He felt that was, a sign of respect. Music coming from the basement was usually classical or jazz. Show tunes was about as modern as it got. Mom would play the piano. He loved that. Please close the door. What is that racket coming from upstairs? I think I always closed the door when I got my stereo. I think it was the 80s or so when he finally asked me what that was and said, "That sounds pretty good." I think it might have been Dan Fogelberg. We had some memorable moments, especially to the end. It was a difficult year, but I was able to spend a lot of time with him all the way up until the end. We had our final conversation about a week or so ago. Michelle Obama was wonderful. Javi Baez still goes for too many high pitches. The orange juice has too much pulp. He tried to be independent as long as he could, even after his body would no longer cooperate. But he continued to teach us up until he took his final breath. I love you, Dad.
Thank you, Jim. I'm now going to ask nephew Larry to come forward.
I've known my Uncle Bert for all my life. Next to my immediate family and my grandparents, his parents, there's no one that I've been closer to. We always all looked up to Uncle Bert, everyone did. Even his parents really had so much respect for him and what he achieved in his life and the person that he was and will always be for us. Bertram Francis Hamilton, Baruch Pinchas, was born in October 1923, just a few months after the death of his grandmother, Bela Freda Kushner, after whom he was named. He was the last living grandchild of Joseph and Bela Freda Kushner, of whom there were quite a few. His grandparents had 13 children. Yesterday, in the Torah portion, which as it happened, I was reading some of the portion yesterday, which I dedicated in his honor. There's the phrase, Tzedek, Tzedek Tirdof, righteousness or justice shall you pursue. Uncle Bert was truly a Rodef Tzedek. When I would run into someone who knew him professionally and from his industrial real estate work, and they said, "Oh, you're the nephew of Bert Hamilton?" I mean, that was a moment where suddenly I was somebody because I was related to someone that they respected as having both a golden touch in his business acumen, but even more importantly, integrity. But he loved those that were close to him, and he took care of them. He took care of my dad, his kid brother, as you said, till the time that he died. And I just want to mention one incident from not that long ago, November of 2018, when my grandson, Teddy, was coming up from Atlanta to celebrate his birthday with us, with my father, may he rest in peace, Herb, and with Uncle Bert. And we were all scheduled to go out to dinner on November 1st for Teddy's birthday. And at the last minute, my dad felt that he wasn't up to it. He hadn't slept well that night. He wasn't feeling too well, and he thought, I can't come. And he called me up and said, I'm not coming to the birthday dinner. I'm sorry. I just can't. And I knew just what to do. I called Uncle Bert. I said, Uncle Bert, my dad says he's not coming to Teddy's birthday party. He came all the way from Atlanta to have a birthday party here. And Uncle Bert took care of it. And the birthday party occurred, and my dad came in with Uncle Bert by his side. Uncle Bert came up to me, said to me, you'll never know what I went through, what I had to do to get your dad here. But he did. Uncle Bert could do could do just about anything. There's no one I've known quite like him, and I hope that I can follow in his footsteps with his love and integrity, that people someday might look to me to do the wonderful things that he did his whole life.
His daughter Susie's now going to say a few words.
There's just too much to say about my dad, but I will try to keep it short, since he told me that he did not like when eulogies dragged on. He would say, "You have to die for people to say nice things about you?" Well, we made sure that he knew while he was still with us how we all felt about him. Our dad lived to almost 97 years, a full, beautiful life filled with hard work, a loving wife, a family he adored, good friends, passions like tennis, golf, working crosswords, listening to music, watching old movies, reading, and bridge, and then poker. He was a gentleman, active and sharp throughout. He was a caring provider, protector, and giver beyond words. The family that he and my mom created was what he treasured the most. Traditions like Sunday night dinners with his grandkids at one of our houses or out was something we all looked forward to. And the quality of food mattered very much. When we went out, we knew that a restaurant could be completely written off forever if Dad didn't like his meal. Sometimes it was ice cold, not lean enough, or altogether inedible. This was never a good thing, but it would instill in us the importance of not settling. He would say, "There are so many good places," and we would often visit his favorites. He got gratification knowing that his family was enjoying a good meal. Over the last 5 years when he lived at the Mather place and we couldn't meet with him on a Sunday, he would get his crew together and pile them in his car and drive them over to Little Ricky's or Barnaby's Pizza. They had a lot of fun. He loved that. Like many daddy-daughter relationships, ours was close and turned into a wonderful friendship. My admiration and love for him was always strong from the early days. I loved riding my bike to meet him as he got off the train at Brayside at 6:15 every night. Those 3 blocks of pedaling back gave me the undivided attention that he knew I needed and cherished. We shared a lot. We shared a love for tennis. He played into his 90s. I learned so much from him about the game, all kinds of different shots, and most of all, strategy. He would always listen as I talked about my matches and would be ever so subtle, changing the subject when I went on too long. He had tact like that. He never wanted to hurt my feelings. His love and his passion for golf was something he would share with David, and they would watch and play together over the years. I guess I got jealous because I started to take up golf this summer. And even though he couldn't ever see me play, he gave me lots of good tips, which I will use and cherish as I continue to learn the game that he loved so much. My dad was the best listener, and he gave well thought out and wise advice. As a kid, I may have been impatient as he talked, but as an adult, I understand the importance of taking your time, thinking things through, and choosing your words carefully. Just one of the many life lessons he taught us. He adored my mom, and the life they built together was the ultimate love story from beginning to end. I'm so lucky to have them as role models, and I take so much comfort knowing that they're together. Dad also had a special relationship with our spouses and loved them like his own kids as well as his grandkids. He so enjoyed getting together and hearing the scoop on school and work and play. When my mom passed in 2015, Dad and I got even closer. We talked daily and sometimes more. Our chats consisted of everything and nothing. He was a best friend to me, and I look forward to sharing just about anything with him. In times when I needed to confide in someone, he wanted to be that person that I could vent to. Can you imagine? Those were his exact words. I'm here for you to vent. Dad loved giving everyone travel directions. That was his favorite. He had a great sense of direction from his days of being an industrial real estate broker, and he loved giving us the best route. Take this way and avoid that way, sending us on the best and most scenic ways to go at times when there was the least amount of traffic. Later, when we all had GPS and didn't need to be given directions, I still let him tell me how to go. It gave him purpose and it gave me comfort. Later on, when things became challenging for him, his need to be in charge kept him sharp and going, just like my brother said. He would handle everything with calm and courage. Even with the advent of technology, he got a computer and an iPhone and an Amazon account. He learned to use them, and he even managed to buy all of us air fryers during the pandemic, and he loved hearing about what we made in them. The pandemic. Smart as he was, Dad knew that this was not going away anytime soon. He stayed strong for a long time, despite not seeing any of us or his buddies while in quarantine for 5 months. There were a few exceptions with FaceTime, phone calls, of course, and some masked courtyard visits. My practical, wise, and dignified dad, who had resisted a caregiver for a long time, finally asked for that help. We are indebted to them and the hospice angels who were by his side when he decided on his own terms that they should be. We enjoyed loving moments with him over the past 2.5 weeks. He gave us that gift, along with so many other gifts. Dad, I am the luckiest to have been your daughter. And I know that navigating the rest of the way will be very hard without you, but I will always look to you to send me the best directions, the right way, the best way, and with the least amount of traffic. You are in my heart forever. I love you. Rest in peace.
Now I'm going to ask the representatives of the grandchildren who will be speaking to come forward.
As we are all products of those who came before us, the Selps Trio wanted to just quickly share the characteristics, whether learned or inherited, that we're most grateful for. For me personally, it was the mental fortitude and toughness that I saw in Grandpa his entire life that, I feel very grateful for to have learned personally. Hannah's grace and Ava's ability to turn down food at a restaurant, much like Grandpa would turn down a beer if it didn't have a proper foamy head. For that, we love you very much, Grandpa.
My grandpa flew a plane and beat the Germans. That's what Kobe always told his friends about our grandfather. While that's not accurate or true, it was just nice that Kobe always felt the need to share that story, and I think he's told people that because he was so proud. When we were thinking about what to share from our family, we were thinking of a story that our grandpa always read us every time he was home, or every time he came to our home in Boston. It was called The Hipponotamus. It was about a hippo that didn't want to be a hippo anymore. And the hippo would go and try to be all these different animals, and at the end of the day, the hippo came back and saw his family and saw that that's all he wanted to be. He wanted to be home with the people he loved. At the time, it was a funny story, and we didn't realize what it meant. But now looking back, knowing why he always read it to us, I think it was really profound that that's one of the things he always taught us. How important family is, how we're all here today, how everyone who's tuning in wanted to join. Family was everything, and we're so excited to continue that importance and keep that going for not only the Hamilton name, but everyone who was involved in Bert's life. We love you, Grandpa. Rest in peace.
I feel like we were always raised with stories about how before any of us grandchildren were born, Grandpa was a lot stricter. He was a very, as we've heard, stoic person. And so after we came along, I've heard a lot about how much he relaxed and would get on the floor and play with us. So you're welcome. But I feel like as much time as we got to spend with him when we were younger, which was incredible, my favorite memories of him are since we've grown up and left home. Talking to him on the phone was always just very useful. He always gave incredible advice, and not the advice you wanted to hear, just what you needed to hear. It was always just exactly right and the exact right length. He never talked on the phone for ages. It was always just exactly as long as you needed and exactly right. So that's something that I'll always remember and try to think of, even when, that's no longer there. So thanks.
Now I'm going to call on my colleague and Bert's other son, Bill, to say some words himself.
Thank you, Rabbi Schwab. When our dear mother passed away years ago, I vividly recall our father sadly shaking his head and saying, "It's not right. Mom was so good. She didn't deserve this. It feels so wrong that her dearly good life ended as abruptly as it did." I nodded in complete agreement. Bert Hamilton knew what goodness was. This is because of 56 years of loving marriage that began with that small Drake Hotel wedding. Because of unforgettable family times we shared at Lake Long Lodge, at 2801 Sheridan Road, at My Place 4. Because of Green Acres and visits to North Star and Nebagamon and Nicolay. Because of nightly opportunities to meet him at Brayside train station. Gifts, really. Because of stops at the Good Humor truck on Green Bay Road. Because of the first sip through the foam of a Michelob on tap he offered me at Skokie Gardens. Dad and I talked substance whenever we spoke, which was often and became daily, even more than daily in recent years. I knew he was feeling well when he'd answer the phone by asking if I could call back later, after he was done with his tutorial offering and cards or the meal he was sharing with friends. We'd read books together often. Debbie enjoyed this with him too in recent years, ever since he shared how much he enjoyed reading her work decades ago. He and I recently read Eric Larson's The Splendid and the Vile, a biography of Winston Churchill. His thoughts? Nothing that hasn't already been written could be written about Churchill. Dad said this was all about those around Churchill, those who influenced him, and vice versa. That's how a good biography works. It's about intimate influence. That's how good eulogy works too, as we've tried to illustrate today. I'll never forget one of the earliest substantive conversations we shared in the hotel lobby in Tiberias in full view of the Sea of Galilee in December of 1982. It was then that he told me that I should pursue the rabbinate, if that's what I felt called to do. We recently recalled that talk and shared how grateful he felt to be able to give each of us, Jim, Susie, myself, the chances to pursue our chosen fields and passions, something that hadn't been as simple when he was growing up. Dad had a keen appreciation for the quiet worlds that lived beyond every face.
those of friends and family, those of complete strangers, and we'll always remember that Aliyah at Bethel in honor of his 95th, when we got to focus on his own remarkable life and world in tender and loving ways that he could hear, embrace, and cherish. Dad's convictions were unmovable, yet he was always remarkably adaptive. How many of us could reinvent ourselves as he did, becoming a devoted caregiver to our mom in his 9th decade, attending to cards, gifts, and generously marking every milestone. He also began to emote more, to say, "I love you," and even to say, "I'm proud of you," which he principally opposed doing for years on the grounds that it felt it conferred too much credit on him for the achievements we ourselves worked to earn. He knew how much we wanted to hear it, so he made sure we did. And here's the thing. It's not just that he changed for us, but his doing so also caused us to change for him. A favorite illustration relates to the function of luck in life. For years, he and I strongly differed on how much luck played a role in life. It was only after a recent conversation over a passage, Larry, in your daughter-in-law's great new book, that he turned me around to his thinking. He echoed words in the book about how even when he didn't succeed in making a deal, when he was getting started in brokering industrial real estate back in his 30s, if he kept doing the right things, future deals would get done and luck would go his way. It was then that it hit me. I said to him in an early July conversation this summer, "Now I think I get it. I had opposed giving luck too much space because it felt like I was crowding out accountability and the critical idea of our being responsible for our actions. Meanwhile, you, dear Dad, have been saying something entirely different all along. You've been giving more space to luck as a way of retaining humility and of having compassion for those who didn't always enjoy it." "You got it, Will," he said. What a refreshing moment of persuasion that was for me mere weeks ago. Again, his change led to ours. So when Debbie and I drove out to see him in a COVID-safe outdoor visit this summer, we decided to tell him how proud we are of him for being so adaptive, so filled with growth and openness to change. He had made entirely new a world of friends for a 4th time in his life when he moved to Mather Place. He was open to new ideas, and in an era where unlearning stuff is out of the question, our dad became increasingly accepting and interested in fresh thinking. Yet the most adaptive thing of all I've saved for last. Our dad lived his 96 years and 10 months fully in charge. He knew something we did not. The more assistance we urged him to accept, which would include some kind and compassionate helpers, the less independent he would become, which in turn meant the less time he'd have left. He did not like to lose his independence. When we finally realized it was necessary, he accepted it, along with the inevitable consequences. And here too, Bert Hamilton adapted. Even though he accepted the help, he still stayed fully in charge. His decision to go into hospice 2.5 weeks ago was clear. He knew his body so well, so much better than the hospitalists assigned to his care. He knew what was going on inside him, and he also knew that he was going back to be with Mom. His final week As the three of us shared a prayerful, melodious moment with him, his eyes were closed, and yet his eyebrows gently turned up while we were singing to convey tender approval. He knew the heart so wanted to pour out, and so he gently let it pour out. And as we prayed Shema with him in the last hours before he drew his last breath, he knew what was coming more than we could, and he knew it was good. Here's the point. Dad took what was wrong in Mom's passing and made it right in his. For this, dear Father, we are grateful. For this, dear Father, we pledge to do what's right by you. For this, our dear Father, your legacy will remain secure and imperishable. We are so proud of you. We are so proud to be part of your family. We love you so very much.
Before the vault is lowered over the casket, I'm going to add some Israeli earth inside the vault. It's already also inside the casket, representing his eternal connection to both the people of Israel and the land of Israel. And afterwards, the vault will be covered. As the vault is placed, I'm going to read from a traditional passage called Sidu Kadin. Hatzur tamim poalo, ki chol rachav mishpat el emunah ve'en ravel, tzadik v'yashar hu. Hatzur tamim b'chol poal, mi yomar lo ma tifal hashalit v'ma tavamal, me'mid u'mechayem u'rit she'ol v'ya'al. Hatzur tamim b'chol maaseh, mi yomar lo ma ta'aseh omer ve'oseh chesed chinam lanu ta'aseh, u'bizchut hanekad kiseh, hakshiva v'aseh. Tzadik b'chol rachav atzur tamim, erech apayim u'malei rachamim chamona v'chus nalavot uvanim, ki lecha adon haslichot v'arachamim. Tzadik ata Adonai lamito chayot, asher biadcha pikton kol ruchot, chalilu lecha zichronenu limchot, yuna einecha rachamim alenu pekuchot, ki lecha adon harachamim v'aslichot. Adamim ben shana yeh elef shanim yichya, Ma'itron lo kilo ayaya, Baruch Dayan ha'emet, Me'midu mechayeh, Baruch hu ki emet dino, Imeshoteta kol beino meshalem la'adam cheshbono v'dino, V'akol ishmo hodaya yitenu, Yadanu Adonai ki tzedek mishpatecha, Titzdak bidvarecha v'tizkeh b'shovtecha, Ve'en lo aher achar midat shovtecha, Tzadik ata Adonai, V'yashar mishpatecha, Dayan emet shofet tzedek v'emet, Baruch Dayan ha'emet, Shekol mishpatav tzedek v'emet, Nefesh kol chai b'yadecha, Tzedek mala yaminecha, Rachem al pleitat son yadecha, V'tomar lamalach heref yadecha, Gedol ha'etza v'rav hallelujah, Asher einecha v'kuchot al kol darchei v'nei adam, Latet lish kidracha v'chri me'alalav, Le'agid ki asher Adonai tzri v'lo v'atabo. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach yehi shem. Adonai mevorach. V'rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashchit. V'yirba lashiva po. V'lo ya'ir kol chamato. The perfect rock whose work we perceive reveals a faithful God, true and upright and honest. The rock is perfect in every way. Dare we ask God to account for any deed? God rules below and on high, causing death but giving us life, bringing us down to the grave but raising us up as well. Adonai Natan, the Lord has given. Adonai Lakach, sadly today, the Lord has taken. Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach. Through it all, we praise the name of God and use the Spirit of God in each of us to comfort each other and carry on. I'm now going to call Bill back up to recite the El Male, the memorial prayer. For those who are seated, if you're able, you can stand.
El Male Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Ametzeh Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'malot Kedoshim Utehorim Gezohar Harakia Mazirim Et Nishmat Avinu Morenu Abenu Baruch Pinchas ben Ephraim Halevi v'Chana Fruma Shehalach le'olamo v'Gan Eden tehei menuchato Ana Baal harachamim Astirehu b'tzedek kanafecha לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר Amen. Dear God, full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to our dearly beloved Father, Baruch Pinchas ben Ephraim Halevi v'Chana Fruma, Bertram Francis Hamilton, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds, each and every one of them, that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. The Lord is his portion. May he rest in peace. And we say, Amen.
This time, I'm going to invite the immediate mourners to recite along with me the burial Kaddish. Do you have? Get the cards. If you want to all share this one. Okay. After the Kaddish, it is a Jewish custom and considered a great act of loving kindness that it's the people who knew and loved Bert who put him to his final rest. And therefore it's the Jewish custom that we actually do the burial ourselves in the same moment as the funeral service. So after the Kaddish, everyone's going to have an opportunity to come and participate in this Chesed Shalamet, this act of loving compassion, an act that can't be returned. And there are a few customs, if you want to observe, to separate this out and raise up the level of this mitzvah. One is that when we do the burial, we do at least 3 shovelfuls. It's considered a chazaka, something that we're doing that's important, and not something that we do very quickly and that we want to be eager to be done with. Second thing is we don't hand the shovel from one person to the next. We put it back in the earth and hold it there for the next person, again, to show that we're not in a hurry or enjoying ourselves in any way, shape, or form. And the third custom, which is optional, some people do, is that in order to have the kavanah, the mental spirituality, that this is not a normal act of shoveling, but this chesed shalamet, is that with the first shovelful, you turn the shovel blade upside down, and do it that way to remind us of the special nature of this act. Due to safety regulations, everyone is going to need to have gloves, in order to participate, but everyone can indeed participate in the mitzvah. And of course, be careful around the graveside. Now I'm going to ask the family to join with me. I'll do it quietly, you'll do it loudly. The burial Kaddish. Yitzkadal v'yitzkadash shemei Rabba be'alma tihu atzid etkata ya etya v'asaka u'mivnei karta di Yerushalayim u'shchalala u'me'ekad palchana nukra min ara tava shmayel atre v'yimlich kushabrichu. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Leolam Ulamei Olmaya. Brichu. Amen. 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 Yeh Zichro Baruch. May the memory of Bertram F Hamilton go to God in peace. Amen. We're now going to invite the immediate family, of course, first, and everyone else who'd like to participate to follow, to participate in the burial. Either side, and of course they'll put more earth down after we finish this.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those who are here, you can use either side of the shovel. Also, there's a small container. It's all the same earth. At the end of the service, we'll form a shura, a double aisleway, which the immediate mourners will pass through, and you may offer the words of traditional consolation. You'll find those on the bottom of the service folder. Lastly, memorial contributions in his memory to the North Suburban Synagogue Bethel, or the Board of Jewish Education of Metropolitan Chicago. That information is on the service folder. Also, all the information about Shiva you'll find there. And for those of you who are online, please go to our website and you'll see information about memorial contributions in the Shiva. For those of you who are here, there's water. We can't hand it to you, but it's right here over here. There's also cold towels you can place on your face. Gloves you can put here. Use gloves. Ladies and gentlemen, you can use the small containers as well, all the same earth.
Yeah. Lean into it, Lodi.
Just don't hurt yourself. Those are heavy. Sorry for your loss. That's all you can do? Yeah.
I'm Yehuda. Never said my name. I said it from Jeremy myself in the text. From Jeremy myself in the text. He's in a lot of live streaming. Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment, the gentlemen from the cemetery are going to close the grave. Then we're going to form a Shura, a double aisle over here. So for those of you who are not going to be doing more earth, if you could kindly walk towards the hearse, and we'll form that double aisle.
You want it on the board? On the board. On the board. Whatever it takes to fill it. Whatever it takes to fill it.
My favorite golf course. You can get in a lot of trouble. You can spray the ball, you can shoot a good round. It feels good.